So my question is this. You've created this amazing, I think, one of the best air purifiers. How did you get started in this field? I know you had mentioned that you had, built some successful businesses in the past, but what kind of drew you into this type of business?
Well, I actually retired and shut a business down, and I was not happy with any of the other air purifying systems that were out there. They were not doing as much as what I thought it could, so I was just going to build my own. So I started doing a lot of research and looking into things and started to use UV light. And I don't mind saying I accidentally did some things that.
So my question is this. You've created this amazing, I think, one of the best air purifiers. How did you get started in this field? I know you had mentioned that you had, built some successful businesses in the past, but what kind of drew you into this type of business?
Well, I actually retired and shut a business down, and I was not happy with any of the other air purifying systems that were out there. They were not doing as much as what I thought it could, so I was just going to build my own. So I started doing a lot of research and looking into things and started to use UV light. And I don't mind saying I accidentally did some things that caused it to stabilize the OH radical molecule. At the time, I didn't even know what an OH radical molecule was. So
Mhm.
I've had the help from a lot of different scientists and chemists, because after that happened and I was getting rid of mold 40 foot away from the machine and at that point it didn't even have a name. I just called it the machine. Then that's when I said, hey, I think that was my wow moment. I think I've got something here. So I contacted a scientist and chemist and we started digging into it. And that's when we spent the 3.5 years of research, developing, engineering, designing, and fine tuning the formula to get it down to where it would produce as many OH radicals as we possibly could. And so I accidentally did it, but then I had a lot of help from people that was a lot smarter than I'll ever be to get it all put together and finalized over that 3.5 years.
Amazing. So, I mean, obviously, let's just briefly mention what the OH radical is, just for those who are curious. Is there?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
The OH radical is something that's been around for, 65, 70 years. It's basically when you use UV lighting and a combination of TiO2, which is titanium dioxide. Now, it has to have another component, which is moisture out of the air that it uses. And then the OH radical is produced. But that technology that's been around for so many years, the problem with it, it only lasts anywhere from a millisecond to 5 seconds, depending upon which university studies that you listen to.
Wow.
And that's the problem with it. It's very, very unstable because it has a negative charge. And so it's on a search and destroy mission, but its search and destroy mission does not last very long. So the old technology with the OH radicals, lasting from a millisecond to 5 seconds, basically has to go through the machine in order for it to work. And there's 4 different types, and it's called a PCO device when you create one. And there's 4 different types. There's one that you use UVA bulbs with, which produce ozone, and you're not supposed to be around. It's not good for the human body. And this is what I'm fixing to share with you is the reason why you need to be very careful of what studies you listen to about PCO devices out there with the OH radical. And then you have some that use a UVB bulb, which produce ozone. You're not supposed to be around. And then you have one with hydrogen peroxide, which is not good for the human body. We use a UV2C bulb, and the UV2C bulb was designed to not produce ozone. And so we're the 4th different kind of PCO device in producing the OH radicals, which the old technology using the UV2C bulb has been used in the space shuttle. It's been used, military's used it heavily in submarines, the ships, to keep their air clean. But here again, the problem with it is that OH radical doesn't last very long because it's unstable. What we've been able to do is stabilize that molecule, which from a scientific standpoint makes no sense to the scientist. I've had several scientists tell me it's just impossible. You cannot have an OH radical molecule that is stabilized. And but it has happened, And the difference is that it's projected out from the machine and it's on a search and destroy mission. And what the OH radical molecule does is it attaches itself to mold, mildew, viruses, bacteria, odors. In our case, with the stabilized one, formaldehyde and mycotoxins, which
Wow.
no other company can really claim.
Right.
And it tears the molecular structure of that molecule down to where it's gone. So it doesn't collect it, it doesn't kill it. You know, in the case of viruses and bacteria, they're just as good dead as they are if it's destroyed. But in the case of mold and mildew, it is much better to have it destroyed instead of killed, because dead mold is more dangerous for you than live mold because it's dried out and it goes airborne on its own. So that's a difference in this technology with OH radical. It literally tears the molecular structure of those molecules down to make them gone.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, this is so radical, and just so unique too. So, and the thing that I'm thinking in the back of my head is, I mean, yeah, this was a breakthrough kind of game changer, if you will, on so many levels, accidental. And then what I love, and probably those who watch me are already thinking this, well, that all sounds like great and all good, but where's the proof? And that's what I love is, in this case, you're not just making these bold claims that where most scientists, again, don't even believe that you can stabilize the OH, but you come with it with so much research backing that up, third party. So we'll dive to that in a moment for those watching. And yeah, so my other question, or actually insight here, was what you're also describing is, and literally in the case of using the OH radical, is something that actually, for those listening at home, you don't really need to think about advanced chemistry and that type of thing. This is actually something that is occurring inside your body, everybody's body, on a daily basis. And as a way that the immune system actually degrades or breaks down some of these pathogenic organisms or toxins in the body. Am I correct in that conclusion?
Well, yes, in a way, there's we have over 80 doctors that are recommending our machine to their patients right now, and we can't cross that FDA line. So but there are a lot of theories out there. There's a lot of doctors with several different theories about exactly how the OH radical works inside the human body. And what's amazing is if you look at the bottom results, there are a lot of people that seem to not get the flu, not get colds. The infection rate at Oklahoma State University with their athletes dropped over 95% the first year they had our machines up there with their athletes. And we can't make claims that the machine will keep you from being not sick and whatnot. We can't make those claims, but it's amazing when you see the results with all these different people. But it's amazing too what happens when the body is breathing 99.9% pure air, not continuously being reinfected. Then that also gives your body's immune system to go back and work in the exact way that it was engineered and designed to work. And the human body is an amazing, amazing machine inside itself. And when you stop continuously repoisoning it, then it gives it that chance to start healing and working on its own the way it's supposed to.
Well said. And again, for those biohackers or people in the health field, I'm sure one of you out there have already known or heard about the advantages of, on a health level, therapeutically, of taking something into the lungs to get it into the bloodstream and to produce a very direct effect. Remember, there's only a couple ways to get something right into your bloodstream. And of course, one way that you don't have to inject yourself with an IV or something like that is right through your lungs. It's happening all the time. And it's not just therapeutic interventions. There was a really fascinating study, I don't know if you remember this, just a few years back, and they were trying to measure, like, where do all these carbohydrates go that we're burning, and where do all these toxins go for the most part? And a huge percentage, it was around 80+%, is actually being exhaled into the air out of your lungs on a daily basis, just through normal metabolism. And of course, that is also part of the reason why some of the dirtiest, most unclean air can be in the home. Granted, of course, we also use chemicals, and a lot of people use other things in the home. But also, again, the body on a metabolic level is eliminating a huge amount of toxins on a daily basis from the lungs. And that's coming out as moisture in the environment. And I'm with you on that. So, and then therapeutically, some of the top things out there, Some people have heard of nebulizing or inhaling glutathione. That's one way to get directly in the body. There's also exercise with oxygen training, where we're actually able to dissolve and raise oxygen levels in tissues very quickly while doing high intensity exercise, but breathing concentrated oxygen. That's another thing. Hydrogen therapy. So I don't know if you're familiar with that. There's around 1,200 studies where we're actually inhaling hydrogen, also drinking it, but both of these methods are extremely therapeutic to the body. And then just on kind of my own study and research, deeply into live blood cell analysis and things like that, the red blood is constantly doing an exchange process of dissolving and taking in, again, all these different compounds from the atmosphere, and it ends up dissolving into the red blood cell itself. And vice versa, that is also a transport area where if it needs to eliminate something that's no longer required, or some sort of toxin, again, that's a route through the lungs. So there's a lot to this, folks, when you get really down into the research of having clean air in the environment. And what really excites me about your product is that, at least in theory, there is an increased sort of oxygen availability in a different form, but something that the body can actually take in. And so when we think about it, if we're just living in our environment, how therapeutic is the air? And I'm sure probably this is a question that most of you have never really asked. Could the actual air I'm breathing in my environment actually be therapeutic for me? Not just, is it harming me or is it not harming me? But again, this is what intrigues me about high-tech air solutions, is it's now this whole other category of, can we make the air therapeutic? And, so that's really fascinating to me. This is, of course, something we'll see in years to come, when we see probably more and more studies around what can be done with the stabilized OH molecule from an inhalation perspective. And I know already your device is being used in a lot of different medical establishments and things like that. But let me see. I wanted to roll in and share a screen, if you don't mind, with your website here, hightechairsolutions.com. Because I just thought that, you had a really good basic diagram right here. So let's just first, if you could just walk me through this, because again, folks, this is, pay attention. This is a totally unique, one-of-a-kind air purifying solution. There's literally nothing like it. There's many other devices out there that are similar to, the competitors. So pay attention to this one. So tell me what's happening here. Obviously, this is your air intake. It's taking in airflow from your environment along with the contaminants. What happens next?
Correct. As the airflow comes in, and of course, all sorts of contaminants in it, whether it's VOCs, formaldehyde, mold, mildew, you go down the list, viruses, bacteria. As it goes into the machine, each chamber in the air reactor will destroy 75%. So if you take that through 4 different chambers, then you're going to come out with 99.9% pure air. And then it also produces the super H radical, and the super H radical has actually been termed. It was named by a doctor at a university, but and he just threw it out there. But those super H radicals go out on a search and destroy mission, and this is what separates us from anything else out there. It searches and destroys the mold, mildew, viruses, bacteria, odors, and that type of thing, and attaches to it all the way across the room. Like I said earlier, we were able to get rid of mold in a courthouse in Mississippi up to 40 foot away from the machine.
Wow.
So our technology is more about creating a safe haven inside that entire structure, whether it's a office building, whether it's a home, whether it's a medical facility, device or whatnot. We create a safe haven inside that entire home. And now as you go down to the air purifiers collect. As the particles come through, they collect it. So then when you, an actual air purifier, then when you start, changing it, all the viruses, bacteria, mold, mildew, everything that's built up in there is inside that, collected up into the filters.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I never did care for. And it's still, I think everybody knows about a HEPA filter. HEPA
Sure.
filter is probably the best filter out there. It gets the smallest particles and whatnot, but
Right.
it's still, there's some particles from a HEPA filter that will go out. And so it's still, it does not make the air 100% pure.
And of course,
Uh,
with any filter, we always have to change that filter, and a lot of people don't like constantly, having to clean that filter. Or, I think there are some washable HEPA filters or something like that, but to my knowledge, and replacing them. But again, you bring up the really important point, is that most of these that are using filters like that, again, are continuing to push out some contaminated particulate. And just for folks at
yes.
home, again, this just for clarification, if anybody was confused, we now rolled into, how high-tech air solutions, how this is different. And then right down here, we're rolling into other devices out there on the market that are using different types of filters that do not really completely clean the air and get actually trapped in the filter, as you were saying. So we're actually rolling into other types of brands, to not actually name the brands, but this is something you commonly see. And so maybe we'll continue on from here. And now if you could.
Yes, and the UV light, it became kind of popular to put in the HVA system, the ductwork, and so as the air flows through there, the UV light kills with. Like I said earlier, if you're talking about viruses and bacteria, that's fine, because it's just as good dead, or if it's dead, it's dead. It can't hurt you. But mold and mildew, it's worse for you dead, and UV light just kills with. The other problem with it being in the HVA system is if it's close enough to the coils, it'll actually damage the coils, because the UV light actually destroys molecules.
Wow.
Now, then, in the medical industry, one of the hottest things out here is a machine they call the robot that blasts UV light throughout the entire room. And this example right here is a good example of it. In that, if they go into a room and they've got to cover up the windows, they've got to have somebody to man it, and then you go in and you blast the room. And what it does is it gets rid of all of the particles. It kills it. But it only disinfects things that it shines on. So it doesn't get, if there's a virus or bacteria underneath the bed, it doesn't get a virus or bacteria that's underneath the table. It only gets what it shines on. And the other problem with the UV light in that situation is, or that scenario is, yes, that's a picture of it right there.
Yep.
Is that once you roll that machine out of that room, then all of a sudden, 5 minutes later, you could have another virus or bacteria back in that room. And of course, in the hospital industry, staph is one of the biggest and worst things out there, literally killing people. And with the air reactors, like I said earlier, you create a safe haven inside there. So especially in the medical industry, where they're using the robot to go in and blast a room and make sure it's clean, or as clean as they can get it, an air reactor would be in there and create a safe haven where those super H radicals are actually there working for you 24/7.
Huh.
So it doesn't ever stop working for you. It's just continuously working for you. So that's the difference in UV light, is it kills only, and once you roll it out of there and cut it off, it's not working for you anymore.
Wow. Yeah. So interesting. That's amazing that you've also one-upped, basically that other companies, and the fact that, you'd really, I mean, any pathogen could regrow anytime. So really, with that other type of technology, you'd have to keep it going all the time, theoretically. And then I also think about, well, what if there is a little bit of shadows, or there's some little area
Correct.
where the light doesn't quite get the full intensity it needs. There are drawbacks to light, obviously, and that can be shadows, or something being obscuring the light. Yeah.
Well, another point on that, with especially with the hospitals, is that UV light machine has to be manned. They have to hire somebody to actually move it around here and there 24/7, or to actually do that, to where the air reactor, you install it, you plug it in, you turn it on, and walk away from it and let it do the job, a better job than what the UV light would be doing, and it does not have to be manned.
It's amazing. Yeah, I mean, this could be just a game changer, really, for a lot of different commercial sort of situations, any corporate environment, schools, hospitals. And I know, again, you're already in some facilities like this commercially, but I really just want the whole world to know about this. So let's also show a picture of it really quick here on your website. Oh, that's the manual. Want to see a picture here? Can't display that one. Could be my internet. Let's see here. Yeah.
Go to products.
Yeah, that was it. Okay. All right. So let's lay it out here for people. So obviously, with the freestanding, anything on wheels here, anything freestanding, it's just a matter of setting it in a room. But also, what you were kind of sharing with me is the fact that this is creating something stabilized that's there doing the work for you all the time. And again, it does not break down quickly. You could also use this on the air intake of like an HVAC unit, correct? So if somebody had central air, you could also just put that there.
Yes, and in fact, we have custom units for that. That's what the custom is, and the reason there's not a picture is because every custom is different. But the custom units are made to go inside the HVA system at the return air, and then the super H radicals are dispersed throughout the HVA system throughout the entire facility. These other models, which by the way, all three of these models are made out of stainless steel hospital grade. We did not want it to have any wood in it to put off VOCs. They actually clean themselves as they run.
Wow.
And each one's designed for a specific reason. The Model 101 is the smallest, about twice the size of a shoebox. That's the most popular one in homes. The Model 120 is kind of a novelty thing, more in office buildings where they want a really quiet motor.
Right.
And then, of course, the Model 110. Model 110 is our workhorse. It's our animal. For the big, what we consider hostile environments, the 110, it just flat gets it on. It gets it on in a hurry and covers bigger areas. So
what surprises me too is how small these actually are, considering they are such a workhorse, or how much you can do. I mean, look at this. This is under 3 feet by 3 feet. You know, for everything it does, it's amazing how compact it is.
Well, and that's something else that we're proud of. It's kind of a misconception out there with a lot of other companies that have cheaper models, and but if you start breaking it down and looking at how many square feet or how many cubic feet of air that it covers, we cover so much more, and then suddenly our machines for what cubic feet that that it covers is actually cheaper. So and does a much better job. So some of the more expensive ones out there.
So that's a great segue here. So people obviously at home or wherever they're listening to this are literally in a space, if you're indoors, that is, again, we would measure that, not square feet, but also cubic feet, because we're thinking about how do we actually purify the entire air filling that space. And so, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of folks don't really, when they're comparing different brands, they don't always think carefully about really how much space do I have in here, and is this particular device I'm looking at, is that going to actually be able to cover this space thoroughly? And what I love about this kind of chart you put together here is, now this information, obviously these at the top are some of the mainstream, most popular brands if you go Googling around. This info is just put together directly from each company's website and materials, and also their sales reps. So if you're wondering where he actually got all this information, and obviously anybody can go back and do the work themselves and get all this info as well, and if they want to recheck this. But essentially, I've already done that, and this is just a nice, handy comparison chart. And I think this is what really hits home what an incredible value your device is. Obviously, again, you know, it's extremely different. That's what you also see when you're comparing across these brands. So here we are. For example, this one's covering, yours is covering the largest amount of cubic feet of air. maybe we'll just start at the, let's see where we want to start here. Okay, let's roll into this chart, if you don't mind, right around here, because I think this really sets it apart quite a lot. So here we are with model 101, and destroys surface contaminants. So let's just go row by row here. And I'll just clarify this and correct me if I'm wrong for any of these, but all these other main purifiers, and really folks, by the way, and there's of course many other purifiers out there, but when I've looked at them, they all pretty much fit into the no category, most of the other purifiers out there. Destroying surface contaminants, to my knowledge and from what you've shared with me, the only way to do that, to actually disinfect an entire environment on every face, so that could be like the side of a cabinet to the top of the table, I mean, you name it, is if you have the stabilized OH. These is just going to have to do more with the air moving through a machine. And it will not, most of these machines, other machines out there, will not touch any sort of contaminants again on any sort of surface. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right.
And the air doctor with the ionization is the only way that they get rid of it with surface, but the ionization is a very low quality surface destroyer, if you would, of the molecules, and you should not be around ionization.
Okay. Yes, and the studies and info actually came out on that many years ago, and not even with like serious air purifiers. If you remember, they came out with like those like initially Sharper Image that offered those ionizers. People still use those, of course, and they're just like the tall cylindrical types of purifiers, and they were finding that some people would have 3 or 4 of those in their home, one in each room, running all the time, and it was starting to produce a type of ozone that was starting to inflame people's lungs. And I think that's when that information first came out. And of course, here we're also talking about a much more even advanced version that, again, potentially you really have to leave the room. You can't be in it. And then let's see here, mycotoxins. And again, I just want to go back and talk about, you brought up at a really important point, is a lot of people today are suffering with mold issues and other types of mycotoxins. And you shared up such an important point, is even if an individual can utilize other known methods of destroying these things, ozone, just to use a classic example, this can also potentially make the toxins that result from destroying these types of things actually more toxic to you. Is that correct?
Yes, if especially if it's just killing them, But the other thing about the mold is the release of the mycotoxins. That there's just really nothing that gets rid of the mycotoxins like we do in the formaldehyde as well. But it's very, very dangerous. And something that amazed me, Alex, was as a company and our sales reps and customers, all three combined, we have done testing in over 500 homes. We do a pre and post, but the pre-testing, not one of those homes came back safe to breathe before they got the air reactors. Not one. And that's something that just amazes me, because if you'd asked me that 8 years ago, I would have said, no way. But we have seen it, we've lived it, and it's yes, people are literally killing themselves with the lack of indoor air quality in their own home, and we've seen it so many times over and over and over. So yes, the indoor air quality is not good in all homes.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and it's just like, I feel like in all my study, I've looked at tens of thousands of supplements. I've looked at all kinds of advanced technologies. There's a lot of really great things out there. There's also a huge amount of things out there, and more coming out every year. And I still feel like there is, for most part, in the consumer mind, they're getting inundated with information about all these sorts of therapies and modalities. And I think for sure at this stage, water, quality water obviously has become a mainstream consumer sort of thing. We have bottled water on shelves. At least people are more clued in about, maybe they should at least try to attempt to improve the water quality that they're drinking. And I think that's a fantastic thing, and that's obviously very important. I think that there's also been a great trend in the last 15 years towards healthier food and healthier food options. We can both agree on that. But what I don't think has been trending well enough, there's way more air purifiers today than there were 10 years ago, obviously. However, still, I feel like a lot of people, they come back home or they live in a city or whatever it is, and they just don't think about it. It's invisible. We don't think about air quality because we can't see it. When we have something and we're drinking it, it's obvious that we're drinking it, but we don't think about that we're taking a breath every moment. And we also don't understand. And I would say also, in my opinion, when we're looking at, the Mercolas out there and just all these different sorts of health information producers that are making all this different information available for people on the internet. Again, I feel like it's just not something that is common enough. It's not mainstream enough that it should be discussed a lot more, air quality. And yet the information on, again, I shared a little bit earlier on why air quality is important, how it's that direct transfer exchange inside the body into directly the bloodstream. A lot of people get hung up on what they're eating, but technically the body, through evolution, has designed itself to have several different protective mechanisms, several different stages of detoxification that happen as you ingest something, and it actually passes through all the way to be eliminated. For the most part, there's a lot there to protect the body, but what's really in place to protect your bloodstream from what goes into your lungs? The lungs do filter some things, but as you and I both know, there's a huge difference between what the lungs can actually filter and have a barrier to, and what actually makes it into the bloodstream directly. So I think this is a massive concern. And it's something, again, I hope by this video, people are taking more seriously. I would prioritize air quality, in fact, over many other things. But, and everybody has any questions, obviously you can always chat with me and reach out to me about that. Formaldehyde, by the way, is something that I deal with a lot of infrared saunas. And this is, so I'll just share with folks at home, if you're interested in infrared sauna, I obviously do review every single brand, but I talk about formaldehyde a lot with infrared saunas because there's wood. It's made out of wood. What else is made out of wood? Your home. And, formaldehyde is used in plywood and the treatment of some other types of woods as well. And this is something that over time can off-gas and create VOCs. And I know that that's probably one of the things that you've been mentioning when you've been testing air quality in your home. And by the way, folks, you can actually get your air quality tested. There's plenty of services that will do that for you. So let's touch on formaldehyde and move through this. And add to it if you feel like I'm missing anything. One big source of formaldehyde is from plywood and other things that go into the construction of a home. Is there anywhere else that you're seeing formaldehyde as an issue?
Basically today, almost everything that they make today, of course, they've started regulating a little bit, but it still puts off formaldehyde. Some of the mobile homes and trailers are just horrific with formaldehyde, very, very bad. One of the tests we did, Dick Lee, actually, a third-party credibility test, he went in and did a test with formaldehyde, and his machine that registered the formaldehyde pegged out as high as it would go. So we don't know how high it was. It was so high, it was the machine out. And we deployed a machine, came back 5 days later, did another test. There was just enough formaldehyde into it that it barely even registered. And Dick Lee he couldn't believe it himself. So he ran another test because he thought that test was faulty. So he ran another one, and the same thing came back. It's just barely even registered. And so the numbers, it just hammered it down in 5 days. But formaldehyde is just about on any new thing that they build at one level or another.
And there was even a news report, it was just a few years ago, that there's just different sorts of construction companies that are getting construction materials from China. And I don't necessarily have a problem with China. There's actually a lot of high quality Chinese products that obviously we use. But there was an issue in the home industry, home building, where just tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of homes were using a specific type of, and I'm trying to remember now, and I think it was particle board or it was sheetrock. I believe it was
Yeah.
sheetrock. And again, they were finding all this off-gassing of VOCs, people getting horribly sick. And the problem is when people get sick with this kind of stuff from air quality, it's, for most practitioners, it's first very hard to test for in the body. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. And even if you do, are you able to pin it down? Then what's the solution? And that is where a lot of people struggle, in my experience, coming to me, you know, decades later with chronic conditions. They just haven't been able to actually clear it out of their body. So if, and I think this is probably okay to theorize about the way your system works, but if something like this, like your system can actually degrade and destroy and break down a chemical like formaldehyde in the air, I would think that there'd also be a wide range of other sort of VOCs and other airborne chemical contaminants that could also be broken down. Would you say that's?
Yes, all VOCs. We have yet to find a VOC that it would not break down, and we've actually done some testing with some heavy metals. Now, naturally, it's not going to destroy a piece of steel sitting there, you know, but as far as off-gassing from heavy metals, we've done some testing in a couple of different manufacturing places that it was able to get rid of those toxic fumes. And so we have done some testing with that, but VOCs and formaldehyde, we know for a fact it will destroy those molecules.
And just to jump ahead really quick here for anybody listening, you know, obviously I said he has third-party tests, and I'll just click on all those soon. But you know, for anybody that's interested already and just saying, oh my gosh, I need to get this thing, I definitely want to try it myself. What I appreciate so much about what you've done is that you've made an offer to people that if you get this machine, if you use it properly, which is obviously not that complicated, if you use it properly, you've done some indoor air quality tests on your home, your office, or whatever it is, and you find that, you know, you do a test a few weeks later, a month later, just depending on when you want to do your test again, within enough period of time, or even just a few days, and you find for some reason those contaminants aren't reduced, you can send that machine back. But to my knowledge, I know you've made this available to a large amount of consumers, and nobody ever sends it back because they get results. But I just love that you've kind of taken the financial risk out of it, just to say this absolutely works, and if you find it doesn't work, fine, you can send it back. So this now makes it kind of available to everybody. A lot of these other purifier companies do not do anything like that. And quite frankly, I think they don't offer something like that because, of course, they cannot guarantee results in quite the same way because, again, they have major hindrances on their method of filtration, or their method of purifying, I should say, the air environment. So I just wanted to say, you know, thank you for that. Because consumers out there are spending a lot of money trying to get better, and a lot of times they're getting stuck with equipment or that is not doing what that it's claimed to do. And here you're kind of just taking all that kind of fear and risk out of the equation. And to my knowledge, I've only found a few companies that can do something like that in different types of modalities, and it's only the companies that have something that's truly breakthrough. They have something that has 100% been proven to work, and they know it works 99% of the time. So why not, you know, make an offer like that to consumers, you know, so they can actually give it a trial at home. So let me just move on here because I know I just want to get through this comparison. There's so much good information.
Well, and if
here.
you don't, Well, if you don't mind, Alex, I'd like to touch on that if you would. We're very, very proud of that pre and post test guarantee that we have. And like Alex said, I don't know of any other company that does that. And we implemented that a little over 3 years ago. We've had over 100 people take advantage of that, and not one person had returned a machine, and because the protocol, I'll tell you in just a second,
okay,
or pay for their testing. So not one. And basically the protocol is pretty simple. First and foremost, you must be sized properly. If it's not sized properly, it's just not going to work. If it is sized properly, it flat out does work. And then you do the test. The pre and post test has to be done exactly the same way. And after you get the pre and post test done exactly the same way, you come back 6 weeks later with the post test, do it the same way. If you don't have big time results, then yes, we'll refund your money for the machine and pay for your testing up to $350. And like I said, we've yet to have to do pay for one or get your machine back. And what the other thing that I think is I'm smiling about it because I think it's really, really cool, and it speaks, it allows the air reactor to speak for itself, is that I would say over half of those people never even did the post test. They noticed the difference in their home. They noticed the difference in their health. They noticed the difference is so big of difference, they didn't even want to waste their money doing the post test. So we see that, and we're very proud of that pre and post test guarantee.
Gosh, yeah, wow. And yeah, I love the last point too, is it's like, you know, people are actually feeling a difference. And that's just something that, I mean, yeah, I've never heard at all, you know, or even in those fake testimonials that a lot of other brands have, that people are really sharing that, you know, that they're actually feeling a difference. This is something that's physiologically actually affecting people. And I think that's just way cool. That brings up that whole thing about, you know, can we breathe more therapeutic air? You know, that's kind of that's the way I would frame it. So that's so cool. And let's see, let's move here. Yeah, the formaldehyde and contaminants, the VOCs. And by the way, this is, folks, again, this is all really important things. Another reason to think about this is, where do you spend a lot of your time? And, you know, I'm always, when I'm talking to my consumers and things like that, I always say, what are your eating? What are your food habits? What are any of your habits or your routines where you spend a lot of time doing the same thing? Because what happens is all that cumulative time eventually catches up with you. So you kind of have to pay attention to those things in your life again, where you're putting a lot of time investment in. So like even electrosmog, which I'm sure you've heard about, like bad EMF in the environment. Well, you know, it's really only a concern in areas where you're spending a lot of time. And that has to do with like your total exposure time and how much that affects you. So granted, we're all sleeping and working or just spending a lot of times in our homes or our actual workspace. And that is now how many hours over the course of many years. This is why eventually it can catch up with your health and really have a massive impact. And the tricky thing is, as you and I both know, is that how do you actually track day-to-day changes or decline in your health when it's something that slowly works you down over years? And this is now the problem that we're seeing in contaminated homes. And of course, mold has started to become more and more of an issue, at least in my work, in my area, that I've also noticed as well, because people have been exposed for some long period of time, and they don't quite notice something until it slowly wears them down, until eventually they're just not even sure what's actually affecting them. And that's part of the problem. Then things get delayed even further, until eventually one fine day, the whole immune system and everything just really kind of starts to shut down. So, you know, vice versa, if you actually have air that's really quality because of a machine like this can do the same thing, but the opposite. You can actually just get a nice steady exposure of something that's healing to the body all the time. And so that's another thing that I love about this, is your air quality, your environment you're spending a lot of time in can actually support you passively, where, you know, you're watching TV, you're being supported passively. You're sleeping, you're being supported passively. Everybody's pretty busy nowadays. So it's not necessarily a new modality somebody needs to like go and do and set some time aside. It's just normal everyday living, but healthier. So I really love that about this machine. So this is again, we've already gone over this, everybody, but this is another important point, is you're not looking at fancy filtration with this device. This is not something that's going to take all the contaminants in your air and start to collect it and build it up in the machine, which then needs to be addressed. This is something that's just completely degrading it and breaking it down. Real time, 24/7 in the air on any surface. And then with these brands, this is in fact something that has to capture it through some sort of filtration mechanism. Maybe Ray, you can briefly speak to molecules. They do a lot of advertising on Facebook and stuff. And then again, they're not capturing these contaminants. What are they doing?
Well, they have a new technology they're calling it nano PCO. It's PCO device, but it's nanotechnology. They claim that they get 100% of everything that goes through their machine. Where, with testing with the PCO machine, our device, it's 99.9. So I guess what goes through the machine, they're actually, 0.1% ahead of us. 99.9 compared to 100% is not much difference. They're doing a tremendous job out there advertising and getting their name out there. But one of the things that's deceiving about the molecule is the fact that the square footage that it covers. To where, if you bought one for every room in your house, bought 6 of them, then you're spending $4,800. To where one of the Model 101's $2,000 R unit will take care of it. And then even on top of that, it has to go through Molecule's machine in order to work. To where ours is, it goes through the machine, it works, and it also produces a super H radical that's on a search and destroy mission. So we are truly the only device out there, the only machine out there that creates a safe haven inside your home. The air inside your home will actually be better for you than the air outside that you breathe. And we're the only company that can really say that in everything that we do, because the super H radicals travel wherever the air flows in your home. And that's what I love to tell people. Wherever the air flows, that's where the super H radicals go. And Molecule can't claim that. It has to go through their machine in order to work.
Beautiful. Yeah, well said. So yeah, folks, we obviously, usually have a big space or sometimes multiple rooms. And again, the cost, and you've already broken this down here, even yearly maintenance, and or the fact that, sure, even if you buy a 799 molecule machine or whatever it is, really, truly, you may have to buy multiple of them. And even then, even if you purchase multiple of some of these brands, again, there's still drawbacks on what it can and cannot do. In terms of clearing out that space in the air and also on surfaces. So that's a really, really great point. Again, it's something that has to travel through the machine. So that is actually incredibly limiting when you think about it. And then let's see here, any ozone output. We've already kind of been over ozone, I think, pretty thoroughly with everybody. Yearly maintenance, and some people do find that important. All these are okay, nothing's like too extravagantly expensive here. But regardless of pricing here, again, what I love is just the fact that this is doing things that obviously, again, no other machine can do. And I think that's what intrigues me. And I think as an investment over the course of really somebody's lifetime, and most of the people I work with, honestly, even at this price point or this price point or this price point, if it's something that, is going to, impact their life and impact their family, and, be there year in and year out, improving air quality, I think it's something that obviously has tremendous value. I would also point out that just the way that your device is constructed, the way that it's done, I would say, in my opinion, obviously, the inside of your machine better than most people, is it's something that's probably going to be a lot more durable in terms of longevity. What would you say about that compared to some of these other ones?
Absolutely. That's the reason we designed and engineered to put it together for the stainless steel hospital grade. We wanted it to last for years. We did not want to be in the maintenance business. And we have some machines out there that's been running for, 9-10 years now that without any problems whatsoever. Even though we have a great warranty with them, we have a 1-year parts and labor and additional 4 years parts. We just do not hardly ever have any problems with them whatsoever. The other thing that I think is very interesting is a lot of these air purifiers that are out there are made of plastics, different types of plastic, which plastic puts off VOCs. So they're actually putting off VOCs, one thing that we're trying to get rid of in the air,
so true.
Which I think is kind of ironic for them to even be doing that. But that's the reason we wanted to have a stainless steel hospital grade machine, well built, to last for many years.
And that's what I love about it is, whether it's the commercial, unit or home unit, you're not really necessarily making a differentiation. Obviously, one can handle a much larger volume in a larger space, but in terms of quality, how it's constructed, components inside, an individual at home is actually buying an industrial commercial grade machine. And there's no kind of, is that a true statement? It's just as far as, the actual component grade, how it's constructed. And then the main differences with commercial units for larger spaces is it's just able to actually handle a larger production of OH into the environment.
Yeah, correct. Correct. We, one thing I did have a customer tell me one time, said, well, they're not very pretty. And I said, well, we didn't want to make one that's pretty. We want to make one that works better than anything else out there and does not put off any toxic fumes of any kind. And then on the other side of that coin, we had a lady that bought a Model 120, which is basically about a 2-foot square box, stainless steel. And she told me it was the best end table she's ever had.
That's
she
hilarious.
put a lamp on it, and she just loved it. So,
oh my gosh.
But yes, we made them to last and to not put off any VOCs.
So I gotta wrap it up here. I just want to say, folks, hey, if you do want to see any of that third-party tests, there's just, here it is, taking on tons of pathogens, contaminants. We have all of that. We have all of that. We also even have testing of different various brands. It's all here. If anybody's interested in actually seeing some of that data, we definitely do have it. And again, also, if anybody is just, thinking, hey, maybe this could actually work for me, I do have some questions about this machine. Obviously, you can get in touch with myself or Ray. If you do want to participate and do the kind of the trial, in a sense, at home, you want to do your testing before and after using the machine to see if it's actually going to work for you, which we know it will, but that's something you're interested in, then definitely reach out. So you can find me at healthhacksreview.com. You can also, of course, always comment below in this video if you are seeing it on YouTube. And also, if you're interested in any sort of promo discount on these types of units, then that promo code you can find below in the description. You can also contact me to obtain that. But meant for those who are just obviously listening to this kind of broadcast by audio, it would be AT, so my first initials, AT, and 5, FIVE. And then I'll actually get you 5% off. And that's something that can be used anytime. And also those types of different sorts of promos and things do change year to year or month to month. So definitely just get in touch with us if you can have any questions about this. You want to know what the latest sort of deal is that can be offered for you. Or if you have a larger space and you're looking to see what you can do in that sort of industrial or work environment, you might be better suited for a custom unit, and definitely get in contact with Ray for that. And he'll just need to ask you a few questions and actually can construct something for literally any sort of space and make sure that it's 99% effective. And that's another thing I really love about it is, really these can be adapted for use absolutely anywhere in any situation, whether you're in a submarine or you're on the 5th floor of an office building or you're inside of a school. So anyways, that's it for now. I think I would love to have you back on for potentially another sort of video in the future. I feel like there's even some more that we could potentially break down and go into.
I would love to. And thank you so much for this opportunity to help get the word out. And we've helped a lot of people out there, and I know we're going to help a lot more get healthier and stay healthier. So I appreciate your time and appreciate your invite.
Absolutely. And again, for anybody watching this that has also in particular any sort of have had mold exposure and also just any kind of resulting mycotoxin exposure, please get into contact with me ASAP because what I'm also putting together, Ray, which I think you might find this interesting, is I'd like to also do sort of a series of case studies out there where we're actually seeing that using this device and breathing therapeutic air in a sense is actually reducing these levels inside of people's bodies. And that is something that is, of course, extremely unique. Normally, we just test the environment, obviously, and make sure it's clean. But I'd like to start to put together hundreds and even thousands of of cases where we can actually track that people's bodies are actually getting healthier in terms of reducing the mold, the mycotoxins that might be inside the body. So if you're watching this, please get in contact with me. If you do have any sort of health challenges in that area, and we do also have a special code that you can use if you are documented to have those sorts of health challenges. So anyways, thanks for watching. Ray, appreciate you being here. This was really awesome. Appreciate everything that you're doing with this extremely therapeutic device. And I hope really one day that literally just everybody knows about this and everybody has it in their home, and we can find it in all these different commercial facilities. So also anybody watching this at home, please spread the word. Please help me spread the word about this company and about this air purifier. And yeah, we'll look forward to connecting with you again, Ray.
Thank you, Alex.
All right, take care. I feel like there's even some more that we could potentially break down and go into.
I would love to, and thank you so much for this opportunity to help get the word out. And we've helped a lot of people out there, and I know we're going to help a lot more get healthier and stay healthier. So I appreciate your time and appreciate your invite.
That literally just everybody knows about this and everybody has it in their home, and we can find it in all these different commercial facilities. So also anybody watching this at home, please spread the word. Please help me spread the word about this company and about this air purifier. And yeah, we'll look forward to connecting with you again, Ray.
Thank you, Alex.
All right, take care.